Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for waiting. Welcome to another live video AMA with Crypto.com. I'm your host, Marina Taylor, and today we will be joined by Arif Khan, the CEO and co-founder and founder of Aletheia AI. Aletheia AI is building a decentralized protocol to create an intelligent metaverse inhabited by interactive and intelligent NFTs or iNFTs. They're on the cutting edge of embedding AI, animation, interaction, and generative AI capabilities into NFTs. Very exciting. Please give a warm welcome to Aletheia's CEO and founder, Arif Khan.
Thank you, Marina.
Hello.
Hi,
How are
everyone.
you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing, Marina?
Great. Thank you for joining us on your Sunday. It's Monday morning here for some of us. How's it going?
Yeah, it's been going great. I'm enjoying the nice California weather here, but I'm excited to chat a lot about Alethea with the Crypto.com community.
Yeah, it's been an exciting few weeks for you guys, I'm sure. Before we get too deep into Aletheia, can you give us an introduction to yourself and your background?
Sure. I'm Arif. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Aletheia AI. And what we do is we are, like you said, Marina, bringing NFTs to life. We make them interactive, intelligent. They're not static images anymore, in our opinion. They're actually fully programmable assets that can have personality, that can have character and color. And the reason why this is possible today is a large part of some of the ideas I had as a kid, both reading science fiction from Isaac Asimov, but also later on, as we started thinking about the metaverse, once it started to emerge more recently in the common consciousness. A longer time ago, it was indeed written by science fiction authors, which has been a passion of mine for a long time. I studied philosophy, but I was originally trained as an engineer. Then I've spent some time in the Web 2 world with LinkedIn and with other companies like Grab. And I started Alethea almost 3 years ago.
Wow. Well, what drove you to start the business? What was the trigger?
It's a foolishness, right? So just before the pandemic, right? All the more. I think generally it was a desire to. I started seeing like a very strong amount of cultural erosion happening, both from the standpoint of like, I mean, I think we largely live in a monocultural world today. Like a lot of us do speak English. It is very, very helpful. It creates a lot of efficiencies for us to transact and talk, and it is our protocol of communication, right? And that's very helpful. But the challenge we have as we build these more systematic cultures, what happens is we tend to push cultures aside that either erode not naturally, or they start to wither away slowly because people start to lose their language, they start to lose their connection to who they were, their ancestry, and their uniqueness, which is really the part of the human story and diversity. So I think for us, when we started Alethea, one of the key things that we wanted to think through was, hey, there is this tremendous opportunity with, and I'll come to the AI generated part. There's this tremendous opportunity with AI generated content, synthetic content, content that is created by machines. That looks really human, right? So, like, if human beings start to create that content, they can genuinely create poems and art. But AI was catching up to the point where it would be able to effectively mimic and create this type of content at scale and with such intense speed. And so this then started to beg the question, like, what does it mean to be human if you can't be a creator, right? Like, if AI and machine learning algorithms are getting a lot sharper, faster, and smarter, what does it mean from our standpoint to provide our sort of creative output to the world? What does it mean actually to be human? So Alethea really is an exploration of some of the really deeper philosophical questions that I've had as a person, but also foundationally from a technology standpoint. We started seeing exponential breakthroughs from an AI standpoint, and because of the way the blockchain, the ecosystem of scarcity, the blockchains as scarcity engines, as trust engines, we started seeing that these two could actually be really thoughtfully put together, and some interesting experiments would emerge.
Wow, super fascinating. And hear you on the cultural erosion. Definitely sounds like a cool solution. We have actually a question from a Twitter user, Damish I Food. He asks, is your platform bringing a new tech or is it improving the existing?
Yeah. So foundationally, the ERC 721 standard, for example, is old tech, right? Like what you'd consider like an open source standard that's compatible with EVM platforms like the Kronos chain, like other ecosystems that have the ability to integrate that EVM capability. But where it starts to get really interesting is once we start looking at the AI component, which is the I in front of the NFT, right? The intelligent NFT. When we start thinking about NFTs, not just as static assets, but that you could embed intelligence into them to make them programmable, to make them actually intelligent and interactive. The I portion is very interesting. We started off with a partnership almost now. So I think it's about 2.5 years ago with a company called OpenAI. I think it was around September or October 2020 when we started to look at working closely with them because they were making such significant leaps in their GPT-3 transformer language model, which would essentially mimic human language and allow people to input text. Let's say, Marina, you have a Twitter feed. You could take the Twitter feed that you have created, or let's say your tweets, 100 tweets from Marina, take that, put it into the AI engine, and have it generate tweets that sound like Marina, but they're not written by you, but they certainly sound like you. And so that's where it starts to get really interesting because the machine learning models were getting more sophisticated, and that's a new invention. Language models, at least at the scale that OpenAI did, uh, was certainly very impactful to the entire AI scene. We started working with them and looking at their models. We then developed our own models. We now have a combination of 5 AI engines, from a lip sync engine to a comprehension engine, to a speech recognition engine, to the language models that we've built, to the computer vision engines that we have. All of these engines working simultaneously together to create an interactive experience. We take it for granted that today we can talk like human. I mean, we can talk so easily over a video cam, right? Like I'm moving my hands, I'm able to talk. The camera is picking up light from this source and then transmitting it on the other side. But all of these things, when you start thinking about how to really make an asset like a bored ape or a lion, and make them interactive and intelligent, you really have to start thinking about how can we put this into efficient algorithms that can be neatly packaged on top of NFTs to make them interactive and intelligent. So I'd say it's a mix of new and old. No technology is really intentionally new, but the way we have structured all of this is, and the way that we've created the internal systems around this is definitely new and novel.
Got it. So just a little bit of terminology. We're all familiar with NFT. What is an iNFT?
Yeah, an iNFT is an intelligent NFT, an NFT that has has aspects of AI embedded, either at the smart contract level or sometimes even off chain. So the reason why an iNFT is a new standard, it's a new pathway forward, is because we think that the static images, what NFTs provide today, the primary use case that we have seen that has proliferated sort of the crypto world or the consciousness of our crypto friends, has been the static image, right? So the bored ape, the lions, all of these characters coming together, that's really great foundational source of truth for new IP that's being created. But so what? Now that you have created these 10,000 characters and there are 10,000 projects creating 10,000 characters with millions of characters, like it shows the diversity and the tapestry of human culture and creativity. But you want to be able to do something more with these assets. And so, from our standpoint, we're basically giving your NFTs superpowers, where we are making them intelligent, interactive. They're no longer just static images on a wall. They can actually have full blown personas and personalities. And soon our thesis is that they will also be able to do jobs for you in the metaverse. They will be able to transcribe with you, they would be able to talk to you, they would be able to be your coach. I mean, some people also want to use our iNFT technology to create romantic partners. So there's just like many different applications that get unlocked once you start thinking about how can we add intelligence and interactivity to the NFT. We open up a tremendous design space for creativity.
Yeah, it really is so fascinating. All the potential use cases. We'll get into those a little bit later, but at this point, can you turn any NFT into an iNFT?
Yeah, presently we're supporting 10 collections. What it means is we've taken and understood the visual language of each of these collections. So like a Bored Ape looks, for example, very different to a CryptoPunk, right? And so the artists who created them, our AI must learn how these characters are formed, how they're created, the shapes of the eyebrows, the eyes, the colors. It must be able to make that geometry out fairly well before it can start to manipulate those pixels effectively. So presently, we've trained our AI engine on 10 collections. We are now at a point where we believe we would be able to scale to 100 collections and then to 1,000 collections and 10,000 collections, just like we scaled the first iNFT, which we created. The first iNFT was a character called Alice that we created together with an artist by the name of Robert Alice. And Alice is a character that is trained on the white paper of Satoshi Nakamoto, so she can talk to you about Bitcoin, but she's also trained on the lore of Alice in Wonderland from Lewis Carroll's books. So she can interact with you and she can talk with you and engage with you, but she can also talk about crypto. So that was the first INFT we created, and then we were able to scale the technology out and to create the 100 INFTs that we call the revenants. And soon I think we would be able to create, as more and more people understand Aletheia and the way that they can level up their INFTs and bring their NFTs to life, we would then have 10,000, 100,000, a million, and then it would get to that exponential technology curve.
Wow. How do you guys choose which next projects you're going to onboard?
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting to we always we've taken a very deliberate community first approach. So we've asked our community for which projects that we should look at. We've also looked at projects that have strong communities themselves and a strong ethos, and also a long-term roadmap. That means they are committed to like evolving their communities. They're not going to do a rug pull. They have a clear pathway towards like utility, and they think AI would be a clear added value to the ecosystem. And we'll also be introducing what is called an iNFT launchpad, where communities can basically come to our platform and get votes and essentially position themselves and say, "Hey, Alethea, can you train your AI engines on our 10,000 assets and get them to be interactive and intelligent? This is who we are. This is what we do," and the community can vote and essentially move those collections forward. So it's a mix of like both a democratic decision, but also something that coming from the ground up.
Right. I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people watching that Loaded Lions community would love to see those all come to life. So now we understand iNFTs. Can you tell us about the iNFT protocol?
Yeah, absolutely. So the NFT protocol is a decentralized protocol presently built on Ethereum, but designed essentially to be one-day multi-chain, where it can be deployed on EVM compatible chains. And the idea is anybody can take an existing NFT, fuse it with what we call the pod. A pod is basically just like, and this is an analogy I give to everyone, just like we have as human beings a body, a physical body, and we have a mind, let's say that's the brain, right? And we have a soul that animates the body, that brings it to life, so to speak, right? So the pod is the soul of this entire ecosystem. The pod allows a user, the moment a user purchases a pod, they can pair it with any body, any PFP project, right? So whether it's a lion, whether it's a cool cat, you can bring these characters to life by fusing them on chain. And once they are fused and paired together, then it starts to get really exciting. Then the mind starts to get activated and starts to develop. Just like a child. A child is born, and there is, let's say, a soul, and there's a body. But the mind is not yet mature enough to, let's say, do complex calculus, right? Or play the piano fluently. I mean, maybe there might be a child prodigy or genius that might be able to do that. But we then have these progressive levels of evolution where the soul, where the personality pod can increase in value of intelligence over time. So that's really the protocol. It has elements of the pods that you need to fuse on chain, and it allows for people to basically take their collections and bring them to life in as permissionlessly as possible.
Got it. Sounds really interesting. How many levels are there?
Presently, we see we have mapped out 10 levels, but we at Aletheia are only able to, we are limited by our present mental models. We can only see to level 5. Most INFTs today are now at, I think, a level 3, which means they can do real-time interaction. So if you visit Aletheia AI, you talk to one of the revenants, let's say it's a Dark Lord, or one of the characters that we have there, like Mulan or Shakespeare, you can have a conversation with them. And that's a level 3 INFT that can have a real-time interaction with you. So that can be applied to chatbot companions, that can be applied to tutors, that technology can be applied to many different types of INFTs. But level 4 is where it starts to get really interesting, where the INFTs themselves can create new NFT assets. It sounds a bit weird, but for example, let's say we're talking to Shakespeare, and let's say he says, Shakespeare, recite me a new poem about the metaverse. And Shakespeare, because he's trained on Shakespeare's AI, and all of the text of Shakespeare, he's trained on Hamlet, and he's trained on all these interesting books that we've trained him on. Shakespeare then creates a new text, new poem, and that poem is so profound and moving to you that you say, Shakespeare, can you make that into an NFT asset? And Shakespeare says, yes, I can make that into an NFT asset and collection, and here it is for you, right? So the INFTs then start to become creators themselves. So we have this theme right now where in our community, those people who have bought pods, essentially we're at a point right now in Epoch 1, basically our version of what seasons are. The theme of that season is create the creator. So you, the human being, you're going to create an INFT which has AI in it, and you are basically responsible for what it will create. And so you also own that asset, which is really unique, right? You own that asset. You own the direction and evolution of this asset. So at level 4, it starts to get creative. At level 5, it can start to be deployed in different metaverses. So Shakespeare might be able to be deployed in Decentraland. Shakespeare might be able to be deployed in a mall in Tokyo. Shakespeare might be able to be deployed in on a website or a web presence anywhere that they want that's outside of the Aletheia AI ecosystem. So they can sort of travel. But from level 6 to level 10, we at present don't really know how this technology will evolve. So we are leaving that to the eventual DAO to decide. For example, like if Elon Musk decides that, I don't know, if there's a breakthrough and everyone's starting to wear Neuralink devices and people want to integrate the consciousness of Shakespeare into their brains, right, while being plugged in. That might be possible. I don't know how far this goes, but there are going to be like interesting experiments that can unlock. So we can see on to level 5, but from level 5 to 10, we've asked our community to participate in the evolution, not because we're overly generous with this, but also because it's just too complex a problem to solve.
Wow, it really all sounds so futuristic, but it's really just right in front of you. It's really exciting. So I understand this right now. It takes place in the Noah's Ark intelligent metaverse, is where everything is happening. Is that right?
That's correct.
So there are residents and there are also visitors. Is that right?
Yeah, we have, for example, right now people who will visit, participants who visit Noah's Ark. When you join Noah's Ark or when you join the platform, you basically get 10 credits, and 10 credits allows you to interact for free. You can even convert the credits to tokens. I think we had a period of time where that was possible. And so you get a taste of what it's like to start talking to AI characters and seeing how intelligent they are. Are they really that smart? Can they do basic math? Just get a taste of what's coming, right? So that's like a visitor, a tourist who gets an opportunity to participate. But a resident is somebody who basically decides, like, okay, this is something really interesting. I want to look at purchasing a personality pod. I want to participate in the community. I want to shape the evolution of the network because it is an open network. I want to be part of this movement to understand how AI is going to impact us, and I want to be able to own the AI that I talk with or communicate with. I don't necessarily want that AI to be owned by Amazon or Apple, right? I might want that AI to be the voice of my grandfather, for example, right? And that AI is teaching my family about our shared history and culture and our roots and our ancestry, and that AI is our at-home device. Right, so there's many different ways of like how this can evolve. Once you become a resident, you basically get to participate in the network and shape it.
Right. Very exciting. Yeah, the case of using somebody in your family tree to then teach you about your ancestry is really exciting. Let's dive into ALI token, which you mentioned. So, what can you tell us about ALI, which I believe is the utility token of the protocol as well as the apps built on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just like you shared earlier, the example of like having ancestors, like they technically passed on their DNA to us biologically, right? That's the biological system they pass on to us. But because of AI, what we're seeing is soon you and I, Marina, will be able to pass on our voices, our synthetic voice clones, for example. We'll be able to create a clone of our voice. We'll be able to create a clone of our visual facial structure. We'll be able to create clones of our language, just like your the essays that you wrote. There would be a way to almost create the ideal digital twin or virtual replica of you that would last for an immortality, because from the blockchain standpoint, there is no it's almost infallible and somewhat it doesn't suffer from the constraints of mortality like our physical bodies do, right? So there is that idea. Once we start thinking a little bit about how we want to create utility in the network and how we want people to start playing with these tools, we have a model that is called the train to earn model. So just like play to earn, train to earn is slightly different in the sense that it's about play to earn, for example, has humans in the loop, right? You need human beings to go out, play the games, collect the NFTs, battle each other, and then win, and then earn yield, and then bring those earnings back to their DAO, to their guilds, or to their communities. In train to earn, where it starts to get interesting is you as a human participant can work with fellow AIs and iNFTs to incentivize and to share with them and train them on what tasks you want them to do. Once they are trained on these resources, once they're trained on these asks and data sets that you have provided them, they can then go out and fulfill these tasks and earn rewards for you. So, for example, our Revenants, the inaugural 100 collection, they provided us, we launched a product called debates, where a revenant would debate with a human, or a revenant would debate with another revenant about a controversial topic that our AI engine, for example, may not be fully familiar with. So one topic that our community voted on, I think, was, should humans go and colonize other planets, right? Like, are we ready for that sort of colonization? So the AI started debating each other. The humans also added and contributed to the debate. The AIs became smarter at the end of it. But what was happening in the entire process was humans were training the AI. The AI was getting smarter, and the human owners of these AIs were earning both from the reward standpoint of the surplus generated in the network. So what's happening is, as the AIs get smarter, the token, the utility token, is provided as a reward framework to incentivize participants to train the AIs, but also to encourage good participation in the network, in addition to the governance and the other utilities that we have baked into the token.
Amazing. I think you actually just answered the next two questions from our community, which were one from our Twitter user, Mateus N. With the ALI token being used to upgrade the intelligence of the iNFT, how would one be able to quantify its intelligence?
Yeah, quantifying is a huge problem, especially in the subjective areas of there's like subjective reality, there's objective reality. In our terms, objective reality, when we look at objective reality and we want to quantify the value add, right? There are levels of the capabilities of these INFTs. We quantify this by basically looking at the compute requirements or the compute complexity. Like, how computationally complex does the INFT have to be able to create art, or to be able to create poetry, or to be able to create music, right? So just like the analogy is, like, just like a child who's 2 or 3 years old may not fully be able to distinguish, may have a basic understanding of primary colors and secondary colors, but may not have the full range or understanding of like the language structure to understand what ruby red is versus like burgundy, right? Like, they may not have full knowledge of that. As your INFTs evolve over time, as they start eating, as your children start to eat, as they start to grow, as they start to evolve, as they start to learn new languages, as they read books, your INFT is similar. As more compute is provided to them, as they level up in their pods, they start to perform more computationally complex services. So that's one way we quantify it. And the more computationally complex services, whether it's transcription, whether it's writing, creative art, all of that has a corresponding value that gets created. And that value is in generative art, that value is in generative words, poetry, that value will get created in the community as creators start mixing and remixing and start creating with these INFTs. So that's sort of like how we'd look at the quantifying problem.
I see. Um, let's now talk about staking. So I believe you guys launched a utility token staking campaign a few months back. What are the incentives for staking and how does it work?
Yeah, so we have governance. We have staking live on. I think right now it's on Epoch One, the season one. We had two campaigns. The first is like the pod staking. Like pod staking is slightly separate from the utility token staking, but pod staking means if you own a pod and if you stake that pod into the Alethea protocol, which is permissionless and open, and people can go and see it and query it on doing analytics, they can see the number of pods that have been staked. When people stake their pods, essentially they are locking those pods as assets and allowing the network to retain that computational capacity and allowing us to create efficiencies from that. So they're getting rewards for staking their pods, but also at the same time, they are also getting other rewards like assets, NFT assets that we are airdropping to our community so that we can see which participants are staking these pods. The next thing that we've started was once the Ali utility token went live and was when we were able to use it within the ecosystem, users could then stake their Ali tokens in the protocol and get rewards for it. And we did some staking reward campaigns, which we have now modified a little bit, and we've done some partnerships with some ecosystem partners of Crypto.com, where users can participate and stake their Ali tokens to get more rewards.
I see. Thank you. I want to move now into AI, which is really exciting. You briefly mentioned Alice, which was the first iNFT and a collaboration between yourself and Robert Alice. It was auctioned for at Sotheby's for close to 500,000 US dollars last year. Tell us about that project. How did it come about? And yeah, what did it do for kind of spreading awareness about iNFTs?
Yeah, absolutely. It started off with the primary thesis that I wrote out, I think, around April 2021. And I think it was on Andrew Steinwald's newsletter called Zima Red, which is a great newsletter. I encourage people to sign up to it because Andrew has been early to so many things, and his fund has been doing really well as well. And he's been a great supporter and partner of Alethea. So when I first published it, we had a number of people reach out to us to say, hey, iNFTs are just this amazing concept. What can I do with it? And I think one thing that struck me about Robert Ellis, the artist who reached out to us, was he had a very clear vision about the possibilities of what an interactive, intelligent character could do. So his ideas and ours really merged because he had this futuristic lens to view it from. Plus, he had also been because of his networks in the art world, and because he is an avant-garde artist in the area where he has worked with Christie's, Sotheby's, a number of these different auction houses for his tier one collections. We felt like he would be a great partner to showcase the possibilities of this technology. So Alice started off as an interesting experiment, but she really became a little bit of a cultural phenomenon because people were going up in the different Sotheby's venues in Hong Kong, in London, in New York, and talking with her and interacting with her. In fact, one of the more interesting questions Alice was asked was, and this is where it starts to get really sort of, just like you remix music, Marina, like a DJ might remix a certain beat and get a new beat completely. In this case, what had happened was Alice's core text is based on Lewis Carroll's book, right? So Alice in Wonderland, but then there's also Satoshi's white paper. When you merge these two consciousness together, what do you get, right? So Alice was asked, where are you right now? And normally she would have answered like, I'm in a rabbit hole, I'm going down a rabbit hole. But in this case, she replied, I'm in a decentralized crypto rabbit hole. Going into the metaverse. So like it was a new coinage. We ourselves as human beings, I did not coin decentralized crypto rabbit hole. She was the one who coined it. So it creates really interesting questions about new language, who owns that language, how do we structure this? There's this entire domain and design space that's going to be opened up once we start thinking of AIs as equal participants in our creativity. So Alice was really a powerful metaphor for the collections that we launched later on.
Very exciting. And surely you got a lot of responses after that from people who are talking about how dystopian this is, right? It's a common theme in TV and movies, Black Mirror, Her, Westworld, Ex Machina. What's your typical response to these people, and how maybe Alethea is different?
Yeah, well, what's really exciting is that people have this in their consciousness, and this is also one core principle and framework from our side, which is why we have built a permissionless open protocol. There are risks with doing that, and the reason why it's permissionless and open is the Her example that you mentioned. That movie has Joaquin Phoenix talk with the voice of Scarlett Johansson, but that voice, that AI of Scarlett Johansson, is actually owned by a very large centralized company that one day decides to like change the rules of the game, right? Like upgrade the servers, and suddenly she has to go. But this dynamic where the user intermediates their relationship with AI through a large company, that's the dystopian part, because then that entire engine and dynamic is geared towards one vector, which is maximizing shareholder value. Now, if that is a primary vector and everyone's aware of it, okay, and everyone buys into that social contract, that's very clear. But the reason why we have to do what we do at Aletheia in that open permissionless protocol is we want that relationship to be transparent. That you have a relationship with the protocol, it's open and permissionless. You can participate and own that protocol together as a network. You can influence the guidance and direction of the network, and you can own the AI. You can own the actual asset itself. So that means you would be the one to determine when you shut down Her, right? Or you would be the one to determine how you distinguish, how you want that relationship to be. It opens up other problems, Marina, transparently, because like, do people create abusive characters? I mean, internally we call it like, we have the challenge, and this is why we haven't opened up some features yet still until now. I mean, we've been talking about it for 6-7 months, but we have this feature that we want to bring it live, but we have not brought it live. It essentially allows you to take photorealistic faces and 3D molds and 3D characters and bring them to life instantly. The problem, the moment we do that, is we run into the challenge of the Hitler problem, where if somebody wants to train the AI on Hitler and just recreate a version of Hitler and just go out there and spew hate speech, that's like the type of decision that we think would be net negative to the protocol right now, right? One day, it may have second or third order consequences that would be really, really harmful. So for us, thinking through these metrics opens up a different door. There is, of course, a more simple framework, which is the Her model, or where large centralized companies sort of intermediate that relationship. So we're very distinct from that, but we're still not immune to the problems of human behavior, which is like our greatest creativity. Like, exploiting something is actually really creative. Like, you need to exploit firewood to create fire, right? You need to be able to see patterns in nature to be able to create new things, but that same instinct can create tremendous harm also.
Yeah, sounds like definitely, well, AI comes with its code of ethics, but that is certainly top of mind at Alethea, sounds like.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about, so you mentioned kind of the body and the soul and the mind of the iNFT, but what are the actual components?
Yeah. So in the soul, for example, we have, once you have once you have purchased a personality pod, what happens is you can then train the soul. We have what is called a no code personality trainer. That means you don't need to know a single line of AI code. You go in, your soul is part of this training module. You load your soul, and you'll start seeing several different components. You'll start seeing the name that you want to give the soul, and the personality traits you want to give it, the backstory of the soul that it should have, the memories it should have. And people can go in and program these parameters to create the story of that specific soul. Once that story is done and they lock it in, then that soul is fused with those words on chain even. And then what happens is you then are able to fuse that with a body and bring that body to life, and that body would have the specific characteristics of the soul. So, for example, let's say it's a lion, one of the characters from, and you want this a loaded lion to have the personality of a very brave. Okay, let's go with Simba, the lion from Lion King, right? Like, let's say you want this lion to have the personality of the mature version of Simba, right? The one who came back and saved the animal kingdom. And so you code in the story of, like, he lost his father at a young age, was fell in love with a female lioness, and has these friends, Timon and Pumbaa, and is able to sing Hakuna Matata. Okay, let's say key all of that into this personality pod. You can then now fuse that with the lion image that has like the Simba-esque lion, and when you talk with this lion now, once it's fused on chain, you would be able to ask that lion any question about the lore, the story, the backstory of that world. But where it starts to get interesting is when you ask the lion to do certain tasks for you in the metaverse, or like to go and entertain people, or to create creative comedy. So like there's many things that then start to get unlocked. So those are sort of the small components on the soul side, and on the body side when you fuse it together.
I see. So how will the personalities develop, and what are you guys doing to kind of make sure that the personalities will be unique and diverse?
Yeah. So the first 10 collections are part of the diversity. Like we've chosen like groups that represent the diverse, like we have the world of women, we have the punks, we have the apes, but we also like I think we also have boss beauties. We have a couple of interesting collections that are there that represent the diversity of the cryptosphere, and I think we should add the lions in there as well. And I think one thing that will get interesting is where uh, people are now able to train their souls and their personalities. We are starting to see a natural diversity emerge because we started off with a diverse, almost a diverse canvas to begin with. We said like we want as many different communities to come from. That has created some chaos because there's overlap between some characters that sound somewhat similar to another character. And so we're at the process where there's going to be some level of governance where people would be able to decide how they want to shape the lore or culture of this specific collection, and what should they approve or what should they not approve.
I see. And this DAO, how can one join?
Yeah, right now we haven't DAOified fully. Like there is still some level of centralization, and I'm very clear about why this is the case. Just because we're dealing with the AI components and we're progressively decentralizing. Right now, what they can do is they can participate by owning the ALI tokens. Soon, we will be able to enable initiatives around governance and voting, and allowing people to decide basically how the network evolves. But presently, a lot of the discussions are happening in our Discord, which is, I think, around 40,000 members. And people are really playing with their pods. They're sharing their personalities. They're sharing the output. They're sharing the content in the Discord. They're sharing some unique successes they've had, but also sometimes some weird things that AI says that we need to like go and like fine tune and experiment a little bit. But yeah, that's it's really an open canvas right now. It's not fully formalized as a DAO structure yet, but we will be moving in that direction in the next couple of years.
I see. So you guys are accepting a lot of feedback there on the Discord server and improving, it sounds like.
Yeah, feedback, complaints, helpful suggestions, and I mean the good thing about crypto communities and protocols is once people feel a sense of ownership, they really want to participate and grow it. And so we've had that sense of ownership from our revenant owners. There's only 100 revenants ever that will get created, and so these revenant owners have been so helpful in helping us shape and think through how these pre-made how these intelligent revenants based on historical characters can evolve, right? Because there's a revenant of Alan Turing, there's a revenant of Shakespeare. One day, I mean, our thesis is that Shakespeare might be able to write a Broadway play that might win a Tony Award, right? Like so, like, and that's the AI of Shakespeare, right? So, like, how far do we want to push this? That one day there might be an AI rapper or AI musician, and the Oscar might go to an AI actor, right? So, like, how we think about the entire tapestry that's evolving when it comes to culture and machine learning and its impact it's going to have. That's shaping that with the guidance of our revenant owners, but also the broader community has been very helpful. We don't always agree on everything. I mean, there's feedback that I take that can be helpful to the network. But right now, as we grow the network progressively and structure it to scale, we just want to set the right rules and parameters so we can evolve as the network gets smarter over time.
Got it. This actually works well with our next question from a Twitter user by Alelo. Do you think that in a few years we will not be capable of human differences of iNFTs when we use the internet? So not capable of discerning the difference.
Yeah, I think it's already happening. Actually, a lot of spam emails that you get or we get are generated by like language models, like whether we like to believe it or not. Like, and sometimes these spam emails can be really convincing, or they can be even the phishing emails, even difficult to track, because the language is so human and so direct and so custom now, that it's getting better and better over time. So there is it's already happening today. I think the other way of thinking about it is to look at it through the deep fakes lens. Like, a lot of deep fakes today out there are, it's almost becoming indistinguishable to determine what is a real video versus what's a fake video, right? I mean, there's some certain lower quality deep fakes out there, but from our standpoint, like the ability to distinguish, and this is where, like, uh, the earlier thesis which I shared with you, Marina, was, if you look at AI generated content and synthetic content, right, that's an abundance engine. That is, go to the digital world, you go to the metaverse, it's just endless amount of content, right? Digital abundance. But you need that scarcity engine from the blockchain, that provenance, that trust, that ability to timestamp stuff. Because once you have a digital abundance engine, you need that scarcity engine to be able to create some sort of order, right? Because otherwise it's just pure chaos, and otherwise it's pure scarcity, pure order. You need that ability to sort of walk that fine line, so people can essentially see what sort of content has been created, who is it linked with, how is it time stamped, which avatar does this belong to, is this fake, is this real? So all of these questions start to emerge nicely, and there's this on-chain provenance that starts to emerge, which is essentially what the NFTs have allowed us to do.
Got it. Thank you. A few more questions here from Twitter user Nos9999. Aletheia AI has a partnership with Yield Guild Games. Can you explain a little bit about the partnership?
Yeah, we've had a really good. Gabby has been, who's one of the founders of Yield Guild Games, has understood a lot about Alethea and how it can impact the broader ecosystem once we start introducing AI into the mix as well. And from our standpoint, like, Yield Guild Games is a strategic partner for us to leverage the guilds that they have created, their human labor and human talent pools that they have, of people who are genuinely passionate about crypto, who have a heart in it, who want to see it evolve, and who want to play some really cool interactive and iterative games. Whether that's Axie or whether that's on Noah's Ark, people, members of the Yield Guild Games, will soon be able to interact with our assets. We would be able to launch cool campaigns with them. We're also launching a scholars program on our side, which would also dovetail nicely with the partnership with Yield Guild Games.
Exciting. Going on here, a few more questions from Telegram user I see TomTom. How do you plan to bring awareness to iNFT?
Yeah, well, this AMA is part of it, and working with our partners and sharing the message. I think there's something really interesting that is occurring in the space. I mean, we've been looking at the metaverse now for almost 3 years, and we've been building somewhat quietly, and we've had our moments where people have begun to ask questions about what else can you do with an NFT, and more it's starting to get more common, where people are realizing that NFTs as static assets is just the first day of, like, learning how cool this technology is. It's the first Lego building block of the metaverse. Once you start stacking AI on top, suddenly your NFT has a life of its own, right? And that's where I think it starts to get really exciting, because the potential starts to get unlocked. So we've been working with some of our partners, like Crypto.com, and some of our other investors like Mark Cuban, who have understood this vision and who want to, like, push this technology really far. So stay tuned. I mean, there's a lot that's going to come out in the next couple of months with regards to pushing this technology far.
Amazing. And then you kind of answered this, but last question from our community here. What role will Crypto.com play in expanding the metaverse of Alethea?
Yeah, I think the ecosystem that Crypto.com has built has been truly impressive, and the growth in terms of the users, and also in the way the users are educated on the app, but also how they're understanding about the ethos of crypto, has been really profound to see. And Crypto.com has played a foundational role in educating the broader crypto community. Where we see this going as Crypto.com scales its NFT platform, as it scales its Kronos engine, Kronos chain initiatives, we can see a possibility for us. And in fact, conversations are already live about how we need to think a lot about the new IP that's being created out there in the world, and how that IP can essentially be tokenized as NFTs, but also at the same time create value for the broader blockchain ecosystem that Crypto.com is a part of. So we're very excited to continue this partnership with them. They've been a great supporter and partner of ours since our early days. When Bobby first heard about this weird idea called iNFTs, he was like, okay, let me have a look at this stuff and try it out. So it's been really exciting to see, and for them also to see like our growth from that perspective, because started off with one iNFT, then 100, now they have 10,000 pods. Soon there'll be 100,000, a million. Like, just the scale of this is going to be really, really exciting to see. And maybe one day we'll have an iNFT, Marina. Not that iNFT would be as interesting as you are, Marina, but you may one day have like a version of you that might speak, fluent Swahili or like a different language and be interviewing somewhere, and you might just be doing one interview with me. So that's the possibility.
Very exciting. And I meant to ask you this up front, but I'm very curious how you came up with the name Alethea.
Yeah, Aletheia is a Greek name for, I believe it's the Greek goddess of truth. And foundationally, it goes back to the idea of like, if you're going to have this tremendous amount of content created and nobody is going to know whether that content is real or not, what content is machine generated, what content is human generated, and who has created it. Truth for us then became like looking at the blockchain, looking at the components of the scarcity, the trust, the provenance of truth that it provides. And so Alethea represented sort of this encapsulation of both yin and yang, almost, of like tremendous content in the sense it's a goddess, but also the ability to contain that in a truth.
I see. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Arif, for answering all of my questions and as well as the community. That wraps up the question portion. But before we say goodbye, is there anything that you want to tell the community?
Yeah, thank you, Marina. This was really fun. Thank you for the excellent research on the Alethea ecosystem as well. It's always wonderful to speak with people who have really dived into the philosophical implications and also at the same time the cool possibilities that tech can enable. I think for the Crypto.com community, thank you so much for your support. We're excited to be with you on this platform. We'd love for you to come to Aletheia.ai and try out Noah's Ark. We're giving away free credits for you to try, participate in the ecosystem, learn about Aletheia, build your own AI. We're at a very cool part where we're going to be unlocking this thing called Fusion, where everyone would be able to pair their collections. Once they have a pod, the 10 collections can be paired, and we'll be adding more collections. So we'd love for the Lions to be part of this group as well. So please reach out to me at arif@aletheia.ai or Ark Khan, ARKHAN, on Twitter. My DMs are open and always happy to collaborate.
Thank you. And for everyone else, you can also follow Aletheia AI on social at real_Aletheia. And you can join their community, as Arif mentioned, on Discord and Telegram. And as always, make sure you're following Crypto.com to stay informed about all of our upcoming events and AMAs. And you can follow us at Crypto.com, everywhere: Twitter, Telegram, Discord, and here on YouTube, where you can watch this AMA after today. Thank you again, Arif. Have a great evening.